Wow. I got a little backlash for this comment. Of course, I'm going to double down. This is what I do, but not backlash like, oh, everybody's hounding on me. No, not one of those. Just you get those that seem to not understand what the end game here, or they finally realize that their end game and what I'm advocating is different from maybe what they advocate. Just because we may agree on one point does not mean that philosophically we certainly are the same. And that's worth paying attention to. I'll get you that. I think in the entertainment space, for example, I've long said that I am not here to protect the status quo. I do not want to revise the status quo. So revive, I think, is more the proper term. So my goal here isn't for, let's say, the Hollywood standard to go back to what it was. No, I'd rather get ran into the ground. That's where I'm at with that. But I made this post, and it's very important. I'm not making this video just to double down on that point, of course, but I'm making this because I want you guys to understand what's going on. But you may have saw this. This went around on social media or whatever about various forms of it. And I said, and I quote, "If you employ people, do not hire SJWs." I'm not talking about someone with one liberal, in quotes, of course, view. I'm talking about raging SJWs, so literal social justice warriors. There are talented and non-leftist people needing to work, and they won't be nearly the headache. Parallel economy, reciprocate. So let's just kind of dive into what this post means. Now, of course, we're referring to actual raging SJWs. You know exactly who those are. People that are legitimate activists for social justice, and they are obnoxious about that advocacy, and everything is centered around that. You know exactly who they are. And I advise not hiring them for a couple of reasons. That being the main reason, and that you're going to give yourself a headache. You've seen all these mega corporations and their structures. These people are miserable as all get out anyway. And that's all sorts of problems waiting to happen, because at that point, they don't, of course, these are the type of people that don't care about your bottom line at all. They don't care about if your business fails or anything. This is just strictly a gig. For them, they don't even look at it like a service is providing, that they're being paid to like provide. They're looking at it more like, well, I wanted a job and you gave it to me, and that nothing exists outside of that. So if they have to hijack or make things about them, false claims, bringing your company down, they will absolutely do that. We've seen them certainly do that. The other part, though, is I think the cultural aspect that I think some people may lose sight of. That cultural point is very important, and that is that, look, I know for a very long time, folks that were like on our side of the aisle. When I said non-leftist, that's what I'm referring to. Some people call themselves various different things. I am a libertarian and a anarcho-capitalist. And, but that's just not all of what makes up the non-leftists. Let's say that. But with these guys that were generally on, like, again, the non-leftist side, they had often either did two things, and that was neglect subculture or outright attack it. That got them in a lot of trouble, and now they see what the ramifications are, rather the consequences are. Because what's happened is you now see that there's nothing that you can get away from that doesn't have some heavily slanted authoritarian left position. And if you say something that directly contradicts that, you are a threat to them, and they will Gina Carano you in the event that you are among them. You either have to be completely silent, you have to be in secret. Basically, the only proper positions that are able to be had publicly among these subcultures are that of authoritarian leftism. That's what happens. You can't get away from it. It's gotten to your video. It's obviously in your movies, your comics. I talk about this stuff all the time, but it's in everything else, your video games, wrestling, everything. You cannot get away from that, and that's what happens when you ignore it. Or you just outright attack it. Believe it or not, there's still some conservatives out there that still think that that is a worthy thing to do, and they still have this boomer con way of looking at like video games. Like, either way, neither here nor there. There's a lot of, however, talented people that do exist among these subcultures that need employment. Number one, they're not going to be nearly the headache. They're talented, and that's what we need. When I say a parallel economy, when I say reciprocate, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about simply like trying to re-infiltrate. No, okay, they got control of what they have. it can get ran into the ground. We'll create something new with updated business and economic models that have caught up with the times. We do not need to be attached to these weirdos. When I say reciprocate, what I'm referring to for those weirdos who will inevitably say, well, you're being worse than them. See, those are usually leftists. It's like the atheists that always talks down upon Christianity and Christians, but when they think they can use it against you, they'll say something like, oh, Jesus wouldn't do that. No. You don't get to do that. Any other day you would step on this concept, but now all of a sudden you want to try to spin it and use it on someone else. No. You don't get to do that. So call me whatever you need to call me in order for you to feel good. But this is what I call reciprocity. You have set the rules. You've drawn your line in the sand. I am not under any requirement to play by play the game, because really that's the only winning move in the first place. But I'm not obligated to join in with you when I know you a dirty, slimy, slick bastard. Let's call you exactly what it is that you are. So, and I ain't talking about like good slick, like you a bastard, like slimy, greasy son of a gun. And I'm going to act accordingly, and I'm encouraging people to act accordingly. You've drawn a line in the sand. I'm not required to sit up there and just be like, all right, well, I'm just going to take it. No. Okay, bet. You want to do that? We're going to do our own thing here. You can do whatever you want. Go run that into the ground. We'll do whatever we need to do here. It's a form of decentralization. So even from a philosophical standpoint, I can certainly get into that. But mega corporations are all around starting to feel what happens when you commit to catering to this mob of weirdos, okay? And you employ these mob of weirdos. Disney right now is going into the tank. Stock goes down. Yeah, there's still those with the addiction problem that are going to continue to fund them, but they have painted themselves in a corner and they have become committed to social justice, particularly pertaining to the lettuce, bacon, and tomato group. And because of that, they've committed, and all of their, like, you saw the Reimagine Disney, everything's committed to that. You're even seeing more and more bizarre things that they're into. And they're using their platform with Disney and Pixar and everything to perpetuate that. Okay. It's not working for them, but they've painted themselves in the corner, so they can't do anything else, okay? But you also get this and stuff like it. Amazon employees of all genders beg management to stop doing business in pro-life states and make other extreme demands. We've seen this. Amazon employees, this ain't the first time they've acted up. They've had their share of weird stuff as well. But these Amazon employees of course, they have a letter that the Amazon employees, I guess, sent to management and all those, or leadership. And they said excuse me, let me get this out of the way. It's here on Daily Wire, by the way. So they deserve the ads. Get the ad money. As part of Amazon's wide-reaching efforts toward a more inclusive and diverse workforce, I almost fell asleep. We believe that Amazon cannot let this recent decision go unanswered. We ask Amazon, the world's best employer, to actively defend against the assault on our liberty. You weirdos do not care about liberty. That is not a term that you should be uttering. You do not care about that at all. That is not a position that you universalize or anything. You're just pro baby killing in womb, and that's about it. So just say that. But acting like you care about liberty, leftists caring about liberty, is hilarious. Says also, among other actions, the authors are requesting that Amazon allow employees of all genders space and time to grieve, express their frustration, and protest against this assault on our rights. In addition, they want the company to donate and match donations to bail funds to help women and pregnant people seeking abortions in states with protections for preborn babies. It says, of course, they're not the first company to pursue such a policy. We already know that. It says the Amazon employees want the company to expand remote work options, audit and remove product offerings. This is hilarious. This is what happens when you hire SJWs. They didn't create the company. They are providing a service for the company, and they are paid to do it. They are paid to do it. Okay, and they are making demands of the actual leadership and the shot callers of the company. That's what SJWs do. They say they want to audit and remove product offerings that misrepresent abortion, encourage hate speech or violence. That's basically aimed at people that probably sell products, books, and stuff that are pro-life. They don't want any part of that, and they are encouraging that Amazon does not do that. The letter also calls for Amazon to cease operations in states with pro-life laws. Indeed, several states have introduced various penalties for those carrying out abortions, even as states are attempting to strengthen their abortion laws and become safe havens for women seeking procedures. So imagine that. These people, the letter, these Amazon employees, they are demanding that you don't do business in these areas that have more, let's say, pro-life geared laws or whatever you want to call it. So Amazon's not going to do it. You already know they're not going to do it. Okay, it's just not going to happen. The reason why they're not going to do it is because they're killing themselves by not doing business with or not operating within these various others like states. They're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. They may signal, they may pay for whatever weird stuff of them relocating, but they're not going to stop doing it. It's just simply not going to happen. But imagine that concept there. It's almost unheard. This would have been something that, even definitely for you guys that grew up in my generation and the other generations that kind of came before me, like you hear a story like that, everybody's fired. Like, how on earth are you going to make a demand of the business owner pertaining to stuff that ain't got nothing to do with us? It's Amazon, right? Granted, they have entered in other spaces, but it's Amazon. So you have businesses that do provide said service, okay? Like that's the service that they provide. And because there's something that exists out of that realm, you want them to then do something on your political or rather social political behalf. These people would have been fired. Like in any business where you may go over there asking, like, it's one thing to have requests, but you somehow making demands pertaining to your political views, they ain't got nothing to do with the company. You'd be out of a job. But this is what happens when you hire weirdos that are part of your company. A lot of these guys probably, I doubt a lot of them are even in the warehouse stuff. They're probably like middle management and office jobs that probably don't even need to exist. And those are the ones that are coming out of the universities with degrees in gender studies and fake degrees that don't really amount to anything, that think that the whole world owes them something. Stop hiring these weirdos, man. If you are an employer or you're starting a business or something, there's enough talented people that aren't deranged SJWs that, again, they'll call themselves maybe various other political philosophies in terms of what they align themselves with. But there'll be less of a headache. That's not to say that every single one of those are going to be, every non-leftist is a good worker. That's stupid. Nobody's suggesting that. And but what I am suggesting is that for a fact you're going to get a headache in some way, shape, or form with an SJW, and there's no reason to welcome that. You don't have to. And some people say, well, that would be discriminatory. Yeah, it is. You discriminate already, but based on political philosophy. It's called reciprocity. But this is the whole thing about private property to people who think of discrimination as a boogeyman term. Private property actually rest upon the idea that property owner, like, let me say this, the mere existence of private property implies discrimination, right? By textbook definition. And that is that you have the right to decide who, what, how folks use your individual private property, it literally implies discrimination of some sort. See, it was when the state got involved in like private property rights, and that's how it got muddied. And you have like going through 60s, 50, 60 Civil Rights Act and all that, where you have all these people who think, well, they think they're in the right by telling people what they can do with their private property. Much like why so many people misunderstand that era, and they act as if like the South was just a bunch of places where people business owners didn't want to sell to black people, not forgetting, or where they are forgetting actually what Jim Crow laws actually are, where it essentially made it illegal for you to just take people's money. You had to have the Plessy versus Ferguson. That was the whole argument about that Supreme Court case. And a lot of people don't know that Louisiana Boxcar Company did not want to separate blacks from whites, or the colored folk from the white folk. Yet they're the ones involved in the case, but they didn't want to do that. It was because that was what the Louisiana laws had to do. They had to separate in different boxcars colors from the white people. That's what Jim Crow laws certainly were. And this is why the Civil Rights Act, for example, was a overturning, or rather overdoing it, instead of actually just addressing the fundamental problem. And that was, you had these various governments that were telling people what to do with their private property. So yeah, it is discriminatory, and I don't in itself find an issue with that. Now, I'm a capitalist at the end of the day. You're probably, for when it comes to selling to people, you're probably doing yourself in by, let's say, I don't know, cutting off a large portion of the actual market, not people that act like they're into an actual market. You may be doing yourselves in, and that's your business. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is not letting in a leech that you know is a leech, that wishes to do you harm, that is not going to be pretty much a good worker and will probably derail your business or make it a headache for you to operate as such. If you only got to hire them, don't hire them. But from a cultural standpoint, there's a lot of folks that do good work, that are very talented, that aren't deranged leftists, and ain't nothing wrong with employing them. They need a job.
You just listened to a clip from my podcast, For Cannon's Sake, which is live throughout the week at 12 p.m. Central on youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. Be sure to check out my website, ericdjuly.com, so you can stay up to date with everything it is that I'm doing. You can also become a member and get access to a bunch of cool perks and exclusive content, which includes a social media hub where you can interact with myself and other members. It even has an app that you can get, which is now live in the Google and Apple stores.